Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I have a little extra time today too, so I can hang out for. Yeah, I can hang out. I'll do a LinkedIn post. As soon as you get the link, I'll shoot it out to people on LinkedIn. They'll come if they're not actually doing the day job. But I think like a lot of people don't do their day job, or their day job is LinkedIn, right? Damn it, I'm at the right place about this. All right. All right. Let me see. Just gonna let me do the click out. Oh, here it is. Copy text. Flying arrows. Okay. Didn't give me 1 second. Yeah, I'm Colin Neese, and I am the a BD kind of commercial lead and like also part-time analyst at Mind Game Data, a behavioral-based tracker that exists to predict what's going to be a hit in gaming versus what is going to have a struggle to make its way in the market based on how we pull data from a bunch of sources and analyze hundreds of thousands of games on a given week. So yeah, that's my background, and also a takesman on the gaming industry. That's a part-time job. I mean, you know what? I think a lot of people are ready to kind of finally say, we got you. So Silksong is definitely performing well beyond, like, not doing very well and beyond kind of what the model had said, at least as of last week's. And me and my partner Brian Rogers were kind of analyzing the data 10 different ways, and it was like eerily like on the same trend as Deltarune, which was a game that came out in June, or at least full release version, where Toby Fox asked his audience to start paying for new chapters as opposed to just giving it to him. So, and that game was wildly successful in June by our estimations, right? But again, it didn't have the same fanfare behind it as Silksong, and you unpack of like why. Well, you know, Toby doesn't do major gaming events. He was at a Nintendo Direct, but that's probably the extent of what he'll do. He lives in like servers, subreddits, Twitter, X, right? And he kind of builds community that way. Silksong went a different route. They went kind of more the mainstream AAA. You know, we're going to be at the big temple event at Gamescom, yada yada yada. Not to say that either is a wrong strategy, but I just think it's eerily similar, like where these games are going to basically fall on top of each other and be equal successes, but not necessarily at the kind of bonkers level. So I will say that is awesome. So to that end, great job by Silksong. And so now with the post Steam crash happening and where it's currently trending on Steam based on our own Steam tracker is we got it at 317,000 concurrents on Steam, making up about 3.5, inching on 4%, 3.5% of the total Steam market. Trailing Counter-Strike, Dota 2, and PUBG all have more players. Counter-Strike has over 1.1 million players on Steam, so just always like, yeah, but people always talk about, oh, this is the biggest game on Steam, and I'm like, no, that's always CS:GO and Dota. That never changes. Oh, you know who also who owns Steam? Valve. You know who publishes CS:GO and Dota? Valve. So it's just like one of those. We just ignore what's big, and that's kind of one of me and my partner Brian's common broader issues with the industry is I just like pace over what's actually big and just talk about things of interest to them outside of that. But I digress. So yeah, Silksong is doing awesomely well, and I think Brian Rogers on my end was real timing me that this is a AAA level hit, which is insane. So he called it a AAA indie, and so he's now saying it's at 453K concurrents on Steam. So and what I'll say about this, and I think it'll hit a really insane player number, is that it's on Game Pass day one. So I cannot think that there's not going to be an insurmountable amount of people playing Silksong on Game Pass as well as Steam. And I also think that this game will sell more on the Switch platform than it will on Steam too. So if Steam is an indicator where you're already having like 400,000 unit sales basically and climbing now, then where does this end up across all platforms? If you just look at players, I think it's going to be a crazy number. So congrats to them. And maybe, and I was literally just talking to someone last night when I was thinking about the pageantry of the Game Awards. I was like, yeah, it's going to be Expedition 33. Like, I don't see any game passing it. I think just give it the trophy. But now I think it's a competition probably between Silksong and E33. So that's I would say a very, 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 very long campaign. Let's just kind of, I'm going to pull it up in our tool real quick. So I'm going to watch you play Silksong while I pull up Silksong. Pull the dates back. So we have a whole games weeks to launch tool in our dashboard that a lot of our partners use to kind of track how it was. Oh my gosh, that's insane. So our data on Silksong starts literally the week after our data collection begins in MindGame. So MindGame data started collecting data, or our data stops at the beginning of 2019 for a variety of reasons, mostly to do with COVID creating like an impossible comparable point. Like you should not look pre-COVID to understand what your game can and can't do because the market's changed so drastically in a post-COVID world. So we just pulled it back a year and basically kind of said that is the beginning of our tracking. And also there's just way more games in the market now. So I think, so to that end, Silksong, first data point in our tool was collected on 1/13/2019, where it kind of popped through at least on a search query basis. So this is when people started really kind of thinking about and like kind of trying to like fish out like where it would begin to kind of percolate. And then like our first major point of search volume of consequence occurred on 1/5/2020. So that's where you see 32,000 search queries, basically, and it props in the top 1,000. So what am I trying to get at with all this? Their campaign was almost 6 years long. So how does a game do that? I build a really awesome first game, then set the yardstick out for your sequel forever in the future, and then community your way into a massive hit. That would be my lesson. But I think most people would then go, well, how do we do this in the 20-week launch window that most games usually give? And I'm like, I think that's impossible. I want to call it some other major moments. So without knowing what happened, there was clearly a major moment for Silksong the week of June 19th, 2022. That's around Summer Game Fest. So my hunch is they did some sort of event or reveal at one of the things, be it Keeley's or Nintendo or somebody. So they saw a massive bump there where they generated over 500,000 search queries, broke into almost the top 100 in video consumption in that week. So they did something there that really kind of gravitated and like pulled in audiences. Again, something in March of this year, something happened. Going into June, something happened, and obviously Gamescom, and then the rest is history. So, yeah, awesome job, Silksong. I always say, like, our model is right 94 out of 100 times. So, if I were to say, if we were to take a sling in the arm, happy that it's Silksong that is going to slightly disprove our model. But ultimately, I have to believe that it was very much a culmination of just a long snowball of just tons of stuff dating back to the beginning of the decade. That's a good question. Honestly, I think it existed basically in its own tier. So just to put it in context, the number one game coming out of Gamescom was Silksong by far, right? So really just ran rampant. And it really showed in YouTube where out of all games, not just games that are out, but all games, it jumped to number 35, which is probably like the first tell. I've told this to people who make platformers and like games like this. YouTube is the place that you see demand begin to swell. People like to watch the game, and they like to see the mechanics of the game. They like to kind of get the vibe of the game, and that's where you begin to see a lot of like interest swell up. Is always like YouTube, and so it did like within that window, it did 2 million search queries. The next game on that list would be Lego Batman, with 1 million search queries. Oh my God, don't get me started. I will get started there in a second, but like Call of Duty Black Ops 7 did not do as well as Silksong. Resident Evil Requiem, which I, by all means, accounts said it's going to be a big hit in the winter, did not do as well as Silksong. So, like, it just punched out a bunch of much larger games. I think in part because they revealed the release date, right? Like, once you say the game's coming out and it's coming out like a couple weeks, I think you just, like, shorten the marketing, like, get a lot of hype behind it, and it worked really well for them. But yeah, Lego Batman is the other game that, people, I would say that I said won Gamescom, and that would be my other major takeaway. I wrote about this last week, so I don't want to bore anyone who already reads my newsletters and whatever that might be, but like, and if there's anyone in the comments, I'm not looking at them, so just shout out to my partner here, Greg, and he'll then tell me what your takes are. If you want to sling a tomato at me, by all means. But like, oh man, for those in the audience, clearly like Lego. So when people are coming out with takes that like Lego is capitalizing on Lego Batman, the Legacy of the Dark Knight is capitalizing on the Arkham series and its fandom, I take a very strong pause and say, well, people who come out with these takes clearly don't understand Lego Batman. So I'll just start there. Lego Batman. If you ever read the book Brick by Brick, outstanding book about how Lego basically saved themselves after they were almost going out of business in the early 2000s for a variety of reasons. They over-manufactured sets that people weren't interested in. They created too many parts, so their supply chain was a mess. But there was like 3 licenses that saved Lego as a company in the Netherlands. It is Star Wars, which still is the number 1 selling Lego French IP across all Lego. It just crushes everything. 2, Harry Potter, also saved Lego as a company. Number 3, Batman. Batman sets started coming out in 2006. That is the beginning of Lego Batman. And those sets are worth an insane amount of money now, very sought after by the collector community. Then the first Lego Batman game came out before Arkham in 2008. And at the time, because I remember I played this game, it was considered the best Batman game ever made. Was a Lego game, right? Wildly popular. And then Arkham comes out, and everything else happens with Lego, and then you kind of fast forward. There's a whole bunch of games from TT from like 2008 up until 2018 where they're just continually releasing Lego Batman games. Here's a sequel, here's another sequel, here's a game starring the villains of Lego Batman. Like they incorporate more of the DC character umbrella underneath there, and it ends in 2018, and then they stop making Lego Batman games. And this is a take that we and me have talked about previously, Greg, which is that basically what happens when games take a long break, right? An incredible amount of demand swells up. Like we saw this with college football when they took a long break. We see all of this with WWE, 2K, and they took a break for a year because the quality taking a deep beat back, and they saw the most successful WWE game come out the year after they took a break. We see this with Battlefield, which I would argue is benefiting from the quote-unquote break. And like again, I think Lego Batman is one of those games where it's like, oh yeah, this game took a long break. There's a pent-up demand and audience for this game, and then out comes the next version, and there's a ton of hype behind it. And I'll end on this. Like, do the math on if Lego Batman started in 2006 and we are entering 2026. That would mean if I was born when Lego Batman came out, I am now a 20-year-old. So you have a bunch of Zoomers in their 20s, nostalgic for Lego Batman, who are going to play Lego Batman. And those people probably played the Arkham series, but I would bet everything that they were first Lego Batman fans, because that's how Batman was introduced to the Zoomer generation, was in the form of Lego. Because the animated series had sunsetted. He was in adult movies, basically. I will not say you're taking your kid to the Dark Knight to introduce them to Batman. They were introduced to Batman through Lego. So that would be my Lego Batman take. It's not Arkham fans coming to Batman. It's Lego Batman fans who are also Arkham fans coming back to Lego Batman because they finally came out with a new game and it's going to be a big hit. And I think it is, because I think the other thing that I will be honest to those who kind of claimed it was an Arkham is like they just took the play mechanics of Arkham and put them into Lego Batman. They're like, oh, he's doing stealth stuff. He's like dropping from the ceiling and grabbing people. And like, to be clear, if Rocksteady was able to make a actual sequel to their Arkham trilogy, not as well received or actually good game as, say, a live service shooter game that they were kind of put in a position to put out, I think that people would be really excited about it, but I don't think that is going to happen. So we're left with Lego Batman being the spiritual sequel to the Arkham trilogy, but told in Lego form. And so I think that's basically what I would say. And they're clearly they clearly know that, and it's in the gameplay footage that they revealed that they're going to do a lot of callbacks to both the Nolan trilogy and the Arkham stuff. And so TT knows this, and I think it does scratch that nostalgia itch for the reason that we're not seeing another Arkham style game from that team in the near future, at least known to anyone. It is Lego Batman. I saw that game and I was like, yep, sold. Here's my money. Me and my son will play this game. I don't need any other marketing on this one. I'll pre-order it as soon as I get around to it. Like it really is just a question of what device I played on. Switch 2 probably, right, to be perfectly candid. Now the only other thing about Gamescom that really stuck out to me was just the sheer amount of tonnage of Souls-like games coming out to market. And I'm like, my gosh, how many people with a sword do we need to like walk around in the world and fight like giant monsters like encompassing small spaces, right? I just think like it kind of led me to write about it because I then I'll go, okay, let's just dive into the actual data, what's going on with the Soulsborne genre, what's happening with like that kind of like that piece, and is it becoming oversaturated? And I think like the data kind of aligns with a strong yes, and like you kind of go back like was the apex of Souls like games Elden Ring? It's hard for me to say that's not going to be the case, and that's not just because it's not a quality thing per se. I mean, I don't think Elden Ring's my favorite from software game, to be honest, but like it was the one that was the only game that came out for like about a 6 month window during COVID where no one has anyone else to do, right? It's just like perfect time for a perfect game that was really, really good, right? That just kind of blew the doors off and is selling 25 plus million copies and kind of just resetting the genre. And then you have an insane amount of followers, but the majority of those games don't find an audience. I just rattled some off for my newsletter. There's a game called Stray Blade from 505 Studios. Came out in 4/20/2023. It reached a pretty small, less than 0.5% of a mindshare audience, meaning it didn't even hit a percentage of a market share. Deathbound, another kind of Soulsborne game, came out in July of 24. Again, similar story, didn't even hit a 0.5% of mindshare. And then lastly, from Kelper Interactive, the people who came out with Clair Obscure and Rematch this year, so they're not hurting. They came out with a game called Flintlock, The Siege of the Dawn. Another game that just failed to reach a percentage in mindshare score. So it's just hard to reach out, and there's just so many more of these games. And then there's obviously successors or spins on the genre: Wuthering Waves, Lives of P, Black Myth Wukong, all kind of taking inspiration or outright are Souls likes in themselves that do find an audience. And so I just think like what you saw in the Gamescom and on SGF before that is just a litany of more of these like Soulsborne games coming, or Souls-like games coming out in market. And one could argue that Hollow Knight is a Souls-like game in some of its play mechanics. So if I were to say like maybe this will be the peak of the indie Souls-like game, but who knows, right? So that's the other kind of major trend I saw coming out of that. But like if you're looking at a more traditional one, like Lords of the Fallen 2, like a sequel to Lords of the Fallen, it did fine. And in context of some of the conversation we were having earlier, like did, almost 250,000 search queries and ranked number 330 or 322 on YouTube. It was the 10th place out of the games announced at Gamescom. So it did fine. It broke through, right? But like that's a far cry from like the peak of like the Souls like genre. And even Elden Ring. I'll let you jump in, Greg. Sorry. Even that game has seen the degradation curve between, I don't want to compare like it's DLC to the original because it's not, but like less interest in the DLC there was in the Elden Ring launch, which makes a lot of sense. But even like Night Rain, which is again very experimental, different game, but there was less interest in that game than there was in the predecessing Elden Ring games. So that all said, if they came out with Elden Ring 2, would it be a hit? Absolutely. Just haven't seen, right? So, and they're doing things to kind of broaden the brand with like their push into I hate the term transmedia, but that's what they call it, like movies based on video game IP and or TV shows, transmedia. They're doing something with A24. So like awesome. Bring the game out to the rest of the world through transmedia efforts. Even if I don't understand how you could turn that game into a movie. I myself probably watch more YouTube content on what the heck is happening in this game in Elden Ring, just so I understand why am I walking around doing what I'm doing, than I actually did playing the game. Lore videos.
Mia-sama-sa.
フダステマ
Mia-sama-sa.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, let's talk about I want to go into the trans media because I think like this is an interesting flywheel if done correctly for games and IP in general, right? So I always kind of pose the question of like, do gaming studios need to spend the time of attention to make a movie? And the answer is no. Like I'll just take like Nintendo's Mario movie, the box office, I think off the top of my head is like $1.4 billion. So like massive number. Like, wow, Nintendo made a $1.4 billion. Like, well, no, they cut that up in half with their, distributor partner, which then that before that even gets there, you cut that in half already with the presumably, I don't know the structure of the deal, but like you presume you split that with the theaters and then you split that again on with your partners. So Nintendo's left with a couple $100 million on that, depending on what the deal is. I'm like, that's not nothing, but like ultimately, but ultimately, is that like better than making another Mario game in terms of their attention and capital? No. But when you think about it from another perspective, what I think you're getting at, when you go, okay, yes, it's not going to make the same money as a game, but don't think about it that way. Think about it as a way to break into the cultural zeitgeist and the attention economy. And then if you were to think about it that way, and it's basically marketing-ish at that point, you're like, what's the best way to market something? A brand? Content. What's the best content? Premium content, like arguably, if it's good, and then you kind of blow up your IP and reinvigorate like an entire reinvigorate your brand, right? And that's when like that kind of stuff I think it really shines through. So if I were Nintendo, I go like, oh yeah, sure, profitability is like okay, but like the value of having Mario and his never-ending sequel of movies coming out forever at a level that will probably keep the brand fresh with young audiences is better than just buying an infinite amount of ads on YouTube, right? So if you were to like buy ads on this, I'd pick the movie every day, and I think that's the value for gaming companies. So like the news out, I think I was gonna write about this week was just like the top, the kind of transmedia brands that are doing it right, the transmedia brands that are doing it fine, and the transmedia brands that are doing it poorly, which one sticks out in my mind. The ones that are doing it right, and the most no-brainer franchise of all time is like Call of Duty being made into a movie. I'm like, yeah, that's $1 billion. Like this game's. Is it? Oh, have you not seen the Twitter meme that the person that clearly should direct this is bring Michael Bay out of retirement or whatever he's doing? Like, just give it to Michael Bay. Hey, look, go cook a movie, man. Like that's. I just think like this is the most no-brainer. It's like, oh, my thinking, no nothing about anything. I think of a Call of Duty movie. I'm like, well, of course they do Modern Warfare, and it would be just an action movie, but an action movie under the banner of Call of Duty, right? That would be my perspective on like what that movie will be. It could be right, could be wrong, but like either way, it's one of the top gaming IP in the world, and it's like a no-brainer $1 billion movie. Like in Minecraft. Quality aside, almost grosses $1 billion, even though it's really targeted at kids and parents who unfortunately have to sit through that movie. I mean, so. I think that's a good point, but I do think like it's made for the movie. People talk about the 4 quads, and I think it's a hard 2-quad movie that could be a 4-quad movie. Being like, is it male, female, over the age of 25, or under the age of 25, right? So, like, obviously males under 25 put a big, like, check mark there. Males over 25, I mean, nostalgia for Call of Duty. People have been playing Call of Duty for 25 years. Big check there. So you have two of the quad, right? Does it cross over to females? No. I mean, like, other than people getting kind of dragged into movies, but like it's like, yeah, this movie's floor is so high already. Like it's like, yeah, this is a solid summer blockbuster. And the people that got the rights, Paramount, like they just did Top Gun Maverick and they just did F1. F1 to me is the best movie of the summer outside of K-pop. Like those are the 2 best movies. And like, yeah, if you just said Call of Duty, more of a Michael Bay style, but with a kind of critical eye of, say, a Top Gun Maverick, that's fun, and you're not fighting anyone by any nation. Of course, you're going to fight, like, no-face people, because you don't want to make any particular region of the world upset that you're making the Call of Duty people fight you. Like, a gold mine there, right? Oh no. Oh yeah. So I've been talking to myself this whole time. Oh man. Ah, well, that's okay. That's okay. I completely agree with that. On the other side, so like the power dynamic for this IP for the bigger games is clearly on the game studio side. They have all the cards. They don't need to make a movie. Making a movie or TV show or whatever is a nice to have. So you have the big studios kind of trying to get those rights because they know there's a built-in audience, right? It's like we are here to get this audience that hopefully drive ROI for our business units, right? So that's like the Call of Duties, the Zeldas, the Mario's, right? Just brands that are bigger than the people that are making the movie for it, right? Like Call of Duty is a bigger brand than Paramount. Full stop, right? So that's the power dynamic there. But for the Hollywood people who probably don't listen to this, but I'll just say this because this is something that we're actually gonna roll out as a report for those who are interested. Is like what IP out there is trending that you could then help them tell their story, but then the creators at the Hollywood side have much more creative freedom to kind of work with the creators of those games to spiritually kind of take what they're doing and make it more mass audience and act as a marketing like channel for them, right? Going back to my whole thesis on the value of like what transmedia does, it's like it's marketing, it's content marketing, right? And if it's good content marketing, I think there's a huge upside to you. So for all these like smaller studios and indies who I think also thinking about like don't overemphasize like we should be making a movie, but like don't skirt off the movie that they come to you. And like I think there's a lot of value on their end to get that attention, and then there's a lot of value on the studio side who are looking to tell unique stories that could be tethered to really popular IP that's just not as big as like say a Call of Duty, right? And there's like a gold rush going on in Hollywood for this sort of stuff right now. And so I think that's a ton of value there for both sides, right? And I think I keep your eye there and like to de-risk it, as I would say, like maybe it's not a movie. Maybe they just want to experiment with it first and turn it into an animated series on Netflix. I think Netflix has really found its stride with making really awesome animated content around games.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it all, but I personally love the people that made Castlevania, which I thought outstanding. I to me that's like when that's when I really realized that trans video is gonna be a thing. It's like I watched Castlevania like in 2018 and I was blown away. I was like, you took an IP that I played as a kid and you turned it into this awesome content. I was like, this is great. And I just crush all of the Castle. I'll watch Castlevania on Netflix forever. I love it. It's like Vampire Hunter D made for me in modern era. Granted, the original like four seasons, whatever it was better than the new version. Nocturne, but like that's fine. Like, it's fine. I'm there for it. But then that same team went and made Devil May Cry. Oh, so awesome on Netflix. I watch it. I'm like, who made this? This is great with Dante and I'm like, oh, same team made Castlevania. Makes sense. But then obviously League of Legends with the show League of Legends is a show on Netflix. I cannot think of it off the top of my head.
Arcane?
Thank you, Arcane. Yes, Arcane. Now that they did that as a very successful animated thing, like I don't know anything, but I would assume people are knocking the doors of like, how do we take Jinx and that character and make her into a live action movie, right? Like I think there's more apt for more stuff from that brand that there was before they made Arcane, right? Because I think Arcane proved that there's an audience outside of League of Legends fandom that would be there to like consume that content. So there's room to do more, as I would say. Now, I know they shuttered their whole like efforts on that side, but I can't imagine them not being like hit up and pitched like, let us make a League of Legends TV show or movie or whatever it may be, right?
Did you watch K-pop Demon Hunters yet?
Oh, of course. I have a daughter.
How many times have you
crushed
seen
that
it?
show.
More or less than 50 times.
Oh, so many times we listen to the music in our car. There's, do we want to rank the songs? Is that where we're at? Are we
I
at the
love
point
it,
of the
man. I love
podcast?
it. I honestly think the
That's a movie of the summer to me.
easily.
I tell people, like, if I were to remove myself and be honest, and I thought, what out of summer 2025 is the movie I'll think about? It's going to be K-pop Demon Hunter.
Easily. It's like a symphony for all your senses, man. The music goes well with the video. The video is like a step up from Miles Morales, the Spideyverse. Like it's. And did you hear that Sony sold it to Netflix for $20 million?
I did. I mean, like, it was a good deal. Like, it was like, I think people paper over the fact that it was COVID. Sony was trying to keep jobs, and they're like trying to sell like things to people to try to like keep the people there employed while they were shut down, basically. So like, I know people want to throw tomatoes at them, but like circumstance, man. Like, it's like it's it's basically like circumstantial. It's very much like you got to look at the whole picture now. In hindsight, like, do you do that deal? Absolutely not. But like, to be fair, how hard would it have been to market, like, if I were to, like, this is outside my scope of expertise, but sure, we'll go here, like, to market K-pop Demon Hunter in a movie, like, you'd almost have to release the whole album on Spotify first. You'd be like, here's the K-pop album.
It was
And
out.
then if it gets,
They didn't do that.
well, I know, but like, if they were trying to like actually release it in theaters, if like Sony kept it, like, we're gonna make this a theatrical movie, you almost have to think they would have to put out the album first to then be like, these songs are in this movie, and hear the story about these 3 Demon Hunter girls as they try to I don't even understand. The plot is they're trying to close the gates of hell, basically, right? Via song and connectivity between people, and the evil people, the boy band comes out of and plot ensues, right?
And now there's 2 more
And so
sequels
much.
coming out. What a day.
Of course. Well, I mean, and another thing, I think trying to fit your entire story into one thing, I think, and over-explain things, I think, people say this about superhero movies, where they like, why do we need an origin story? Was there an origin story for this K-pop movie? No, you have no idea why they're hunters. You have no idea why they're trying to. I mean, other than, yeah, of course you shut the gates of hell if you can, right, through song. That's just what you do. But like, you don't explain like why they're doing it that way. You don't explain like who are the demons anyways. Like, why are they even demons? Like, you have nothing about anything, or even the backstories of each of the girls. You kind of get Rumi's quasi kind of piece together. She's a half demon. Who's her dad? No idea.
You want the whole
What about the other
backstory
characters?
before the movie's a hit.
Yeah, but if you look at the culture underneath it, there's so much content of like, you're like kind of going back to gaming. People just trying to fill in the blanks. Like, let's just put together, right? Let's hypothesize like why they are doing what they're doing. And I think more content needs to learn, like, not to put everything out there. Just let things kind of hang in a without being said, and let the kind of internet grow wild, right? Maybe that's what Elden Ring did really well. Is like, certainly didn't explain its plot. A lot of theorizing going on there. So maybe that was to its credit. It's like, we don't want to explain much of anything. You're just a guy with a sword. You're fighting people. If you really want to understand it, read the items in the game, piece it together. Maybe someone does the work for you. Watch it on YouTube. But then even they don't have the answers to everything. So they just start connecting dots where they can and theorizing, and like that becomes a subculture in of itself. I remember that's what Destiny did when that game came out. It was like, what's going on in Destiny? No idea. We're just here shooting the various aliens. Like, all right. And that became an entire subculture, was like understanding the story behind Destiny. I Am Blythe is like a YouTube creator. I remember it comes sticking out in my mind of like just walking through the game and explaining what's happening in the story. It became like a huge piece of that game's culture.
I feel like Overwatch did that really well too. I think they were like one of the first to create backstories for all, like they put out almost full-length movies for some of their characters.
Yeah,
Whoever
yeah,
the ape
exactly
was,
right.
whoever the ape was in Overwatch.
Well,
but,
well, let's jump to something that I'd like to hear about here. How was your combo with Amir, man? I love Amir. He's awesome. So, no notes, but like, he's what he does. I as a person who tries to do like 50 things at once, I don't even understand where the time comes from in his day.
Yeah,
I'm just
that was
like
one of my big
just
things.
floored with how he's able to do what he's able to do. So how'd your combo with him go, man?
Yeah, it was good. I really
assume
wanted
people
to
can
talk
hear
to him. You know, he's a great individual. Does a lot of help for the gaming industry, which I think is fantastic. And I wanted to kind of think of a way of how do I have a conversation with Amir that's not like the 15 other conversations that he's had, because he's been having a ton of these conversations about layoffs and jobs, and I know it's important, right? But I think he kind of resonates with me because we're both around the same age. We both grew up in the same area, the Northeast, and and he got into gaming later in his life, like I did as well, right? So I wanted to talk more so about how he handles work-life balance, right? He's got a kid, he's got other things going on. Like you said, he's got his community as well as his day job at Tencent. So how do you balance your time? How do you keep your family priority? How do you even know when you want more in your job, right? To your point, like I asked, one of my questions I asked him was like, what do you want to do next with your career? And he's like, I'm perfectly happy where I am. And that's something more people need to start learning. And I agree, right? Like, not everyone wants to be a CEO. Not everyone wants to do all this stuff. So it's important to understand when enough is enough and when you're happy, right? I think it's just a cool conversation. He's a super nice dude, right? He's such a good person, and everything he does, I think, is for the good of the industry, which I think is important because, you know, when all these not shooter looters, the arena shooters came out, right? Like, it was all became MBAs coming in here trying to just monetize gaming, and then finally start seeing like some real gamers come back pitching games. I'm like, and he's a gamer, he likes games, right? So it's great to hear his perspective on this stuff, and it comes out next week. I think Tuesday's the day that podcast is coming out, but I think it's just such a cool story to hear about what he talks about.
That's awesome. You're so right about the NBA-ification of gaming. Got an update to those who make it all the way through the podcast. We are at number 3 on Steam. It passed PUBG, or I think maybe it did already. It's behind Dota and CS:GO. But notably, CS:GO has lost 200,000 players. It was at 1.2, and now it's at 1 million. So, do those people go to bed because it's Europeans that play CS:GO, or is it people jumping over to play some Hollow Knight, Silksong? You know, I'm so excited to get off this to take all the arrow slings from everybody in the industry who's been waiting to say, dunk on us that we were wrong at my game. I would say, well, you know, 400 times. It's okay.
It's just, I feel like the whole thing behind Silksong is something weird. And don't get me wrong, I know people are hyped about the game, but like, I don't know, man. Like, maybe it's just not marketed towards me, so I never really see it.
I'm playing this game. I'm on my way to Europe next week, so this is my airplane game on my Steam Deck and or Switch. I don't know which one I'm gonna bring. Probably just bring the Steam Deck so my kids can play Mario Kart World on the Switch while I'm gone. So I'll do Steam Deck on this one. It seems to run well on it.
How nice of you.
I've seen. So, yeah. But yeah, no. As that update on Hollow Knight, almost at 500 Steam concurrence, making up about 6% of the market right now on Steam, which is incredible. That is it's a level of live service shooter level right now. So awesome. Tip of the cap to the Hollow Knight Silksong team. And after I'm on this, I'll probably just go and live in Arrows for the next day or so. I'll probably have to write about this week. Anyways, the via Copa. But back to Amir, man. Yeah, Amir's so genuine and honest and awesome. So that's like back to the NBA-ification, like, yeah, there's so many. That's why I think a lot of the game development and like marketing strategies have gone awry. Where, like, go to my point about earlier, you know, is like, why are there so many clones of Elden Ring coming out? Because the NBA has told them to do that game, right? Why are there so many live service shooter games, or live service games, but shooter games for sure, coming out? Because the NBA has told them it's better to swing for the fences, and maybe NBA-ification is the wrong way. I would call it the VC-ification of gaming, where they expect to make 10x return on their investment, not 2x return. And I think having a nice hit is not what they're investing in. They're investing in to make, you know, bonkers 10x money, right? And they're okay with a lot of things failing in between them and achieving their goal of 10x plus return, right? And like finding a unicorn. And I think because you're seeing that kind of money moving away from gaming, I think that's probably a good thing for the ecosystem, because hopefully we get away from the 10x goal setting that happens, and like people go back to just making things that resonate with audiences. And by that I mean they don't have to be 10x return. They could be the game. I always call it the game before the game before the game. Like, it's okay that Larian Studios made Divinity, and then they made Divinity 2. And then after all the Divinity work, which are basically they came out with Baldur's Gate 3 and cashed in their chips on a S tier game of the last 5 years, right? Good for them. But they didn't get there by just making Baldur's Gate 3 and chasing a trend. They made it because they started off with Divinity and then Divinity 2. So I think I hope that happens, right? And in terms of all the layoffs, it sucks seeing all the people getting cut. I saw like Dreamhaven, the Explosion people having rounds layoffs yesterday, and you're like, and part of it's like an ethos of like, and kind of going back to what we try to do in my game, and the reason why we started doing what we're doing is like there's this presumption of like, because there's people behind it, people will just show up, and that's just not how the ecosystem works. Looking at the game that you're doing, they didn't just show up with a Hollow Knight sequel. They had a first Hollow Knight game, obviously well regarded, sold 15 million copies, beloved game, right? Yada yada yada. And then they started doing stuff around this game 5 years ago. So it wasn't like born out of nothing. It was like, it wasn't build it, they will come. It was community over a very, 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 very long time horizon, as opposed to shortcutting that stuff. And I think that's where a lot of, not to say that's what happened with the Dreamhaven folks. It's just this presumption of like you could shortcut your way to kind of finding massive success via like, well, we have the team here, we can just put out games, but not could be concerned of how we're going to get people to pay attention to our game, because like that's the whole thing we do is like, if no one knows about your game because there's no discernible measurement against it, then you're doomed to fail irregardless of whether it's good or bad. It doesn't matter. It's just attention is everything, and if you can't get attention, then you're not going to find success.
Yeah, I spoke with a gentleman by the name of Mark Ortero. He made Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, and one of the things he said that was interesting to me is that if you're chasing trends, you're already too late and you're going to miss it. And I thought that was fascinating, right? Because, you know, you're either the trendsetter or you're trying to keep up with the Joneses, which is fine, but there's going to be a much smaller appetite for that once that itch is scratched. And what were we talking about? Was it me and you talking about this the other day? It was Skate. Yeah, I was talking about it with I think your post. You were talking about Skate coming out. I'm just like, Skate was announced also like 4 years ago, right? And skating is a niche. It's a very unique niche, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of money there, but in the time that they announced it, they remade Tony Hawk 1 and 2. They released a remake of Tony Hawk 3 and 4. I personally think that skating itch has been scratched, and they, you know, again, not that they're chasing the trends, but they announced it so far in advance that they let their main competitor come and lap them. And like, is there still an appetite there for skating games, or does you eventually just get drained of those same types of games over and over again? And I think there's kind of this fine line of, you know what, is Skate going to be a successful game because of how long it took to come to market? I mean, Silksong didn't really have a ton of competitors, or maybe it does, right? Again, this is not my world, right? So I take back that statement. But you know, sometimes you chase a trend, you wait too long, you kind of miss your shot.
Yeah, we should talk about this next time. This is like a longer conversation, yeah. But I firmly believe that every market in gaming operates in an oligopoly of attention. Like there is room for three, and there's not room for more than that. And like, well, there's more than three popular shooters. I'm like, yeah, because that market's so big, it gets bifurcated in various subgenres. Like you have your extraction shooters, which is the very niche thing. You have your tactical shooters. You have your hero shooters. You have, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So like you can subgenre something to death, or kind of into different pockets once the genre gets so big, which shooters are definitely that genre. But like, you go and look at like MOBAs, there's 2 games. That's it. That's the market. And you can go to each market and say, what's the market look like for platformers? Pretty limited, if you were to be honest about it, right? You go to the market and like you can sure split that to mobile first platformers like Subway Surfers versus like a Mario, which is a console based platformer, right? So yeah, there's a little bit of a differentiation and bifurcation there, but like every market exists in like an oligopoly, and like unless you are determined to be usually the first mover gets the gold medal, and it's very hard to take the gold medal away from them. So you have to be thinking about where the puck's going versus where it is to be the gold medal, and that's where you're going to see your 10x return for those VC people listening. Probably not, but that would be that. So then you go, okay, are you the silver medalist? Are you the fast follower, right? And like, yeah, maybe, right? And once in a very, very blue moon, you can usurp the winner of the previous, like. My favorite example of this, when I think about it, is always the battle royales. Like, it's DayZ, led to H1Z1, led to PUBG, led to Fortnite, and Fortnite's the king, right? So, boom, 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 right? And it was like, okay, yeah, but that's really rare. And that was a genre iterating in real time on top of itself until it found like the mass audience version, the hardcore gamer version, which is PUBG, and then everybody else is behind them.
All right, I think we're at a good point here.
All right.
Well, let us know where we can find you, Colin, and your data.
I am Mind Game Data. You can find me at LinkedIn, Colin Neese, COLANNEESE. Follow me there. I have a newsletter I call Patch Notes that I will write typically on Thursdays or Fridays. I have to throw my entire note away and start from scratch as a content creator. That is so frustrating. Got the hollow knight of it all, but it is what it is. I think it's pretty good. And shout out to those. We finally hit 1,000 subs on LinkedIn. I wanted to do that before Labor Day. I did it the day after Labor Day, so I just
There we
barely missed
go.
my own goal.
Yeah, you
But
still made it.
thanks.
Day,
I made it close.
day late, dollar above. I don't know.
So that's where you find me. Yeah, and then yeah, I'm always happy to connect and talk about things, data-driven analysis, and what I think about the gaming industry.
Cool. And my name is Greg Posner. I am player driven. You can check us out at playerdriven.io. We're going to hopefully be doing this every 2 weeks. If there's a game you want to see, if there's a question you want to answer, drop it, let us know. But I appreciate all you watching this, and have a great